Okay. What are your motivations for theism?
Anyways, I believe that based off the way we perceive reality, based off our observation, there's always pointing towards something. Everything we observe is contingent, which I would believe will point towards a necessary being, because I don't believe in infinite regression of reality or anything like that. I think a necessary being would just be a most likely outcome.
Okay, so do you have like a syllogism?
Yeah, I do, but kind of ass right now. I need to edit it, but I do have one, but it's not really the best.
Okay,
So
do you want me to make you? You want? I can just make it. All right, hold on. Let me turn off push to talk. Okay, so what would premise one be?
premise one, that everything we observe is going to be contingent.
Everything observed is contingent. Okay, what's P2?
That infinite regression is illogical. Therefore, there must be a necessary being, being the set of being the cause or set of all contingent things or whatever.
Okay, what's your conclusion?
Conclusion. Therefore, God exists, because I would define God as a necessary being.
Okay, is that your syllogism?
Yep.
Okay, what's the inference rule?
I would say the inference rule. Let me look. Because I don't think it's modus ponens. Let me look at my.
Yeah.
Let me look. Do you think it would fall under some type of hypothetical syllogism?
No, I can't recognize the inference rule here. Well, like, you can try to like edit it a little bit. But I guess I just want to clarify. What do you mean by God?
I would say God as I would determine God as all powerful being,
You define God as what?
an all powerful being.
An all-powerful being, so only omnipotent.
Yeah.
Okay. So you don't think he's necessary?
I think being all powerful, byproduct of being all powerful would just be being a necessary being.
What makes you say that?
Because if you're all powerful, you could do anything. Like that means if you could do anything, you're all powerful with lack of limits. I believe that which will all reality will be dependent on you. I believe that you would exist in every possible world
Oh,
because you
so you're
can't.
saying that he would be able to make himself a necessary being.
I want to say make himself a necessary being, but that would just be a result of his nature, a result of just being all powerful himself. I want to say in the sense of him like granting himself being a necessary being. I would say he already would be one just by being all powerful.
Oh, I don't understand. How does that follow?
Because under the definition of all powerful is to be able to do anything. So I think that
Right.
if he was all powerful, he would just be a necessary being. And I think
Yeah,
that
well, I understand what you're saying, but like, why, like, you have no limits and you can do anything. Why does that mean that you're necessary?
I mean, because if you weren't necessary, right, be a limitation. That means if he was to lack limits, right, he would then be a necessary being.
Well, like you said, that it would have a limit to anything that he could do. So I agree that he could make himself necessary,
I mean,
but,
I can find view to hold, but that's not the way I would word it.
that's how you define the omnipotent, right?
I would just define omnipotence to be all powerful.
Right, right. So all powerful as in, you can do anything, right, without limits.
Yep.
Okay, so are you saying that he can make himself necessary?
He can make himself necessary, but I just believe he'll just be necessary in nature. Because that's yeah, I just believe if he's all powerful, he likes limits, it'll just be already inherent for him to be necessary. Yeah, what's the topic?
Okay, sure. Um, we're talking about theism. So I think it would just be better to say he's both omnipotent and necessary then.
Right.
Okay, do you think he's omniscient?
Yeah, all-knowing.
Sorry, what was that?
You said omniscient. I said, are you in reference to all knowing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree that he's all knowing.
Okay, do you think he's omnibenevolent?
You said what?
Omnibenevolent?
What do you mean when you use that? As in, he can
All good.
all good. Uh, what do you like? What would like? Could you be more like elaborate? What do you
Morally
mean
perfect? Like very virtuous?
morally perfect? As in, like all he does would just be morally just.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So do you have an argument now?
I haven't put it in a syllogistic form now because that's what I'm planning on doing. Because I've been told by other people that it lacks an inference rule and like a biconditional. So I need to fix it and look over how I want to make.
Well, look,
Uh
I can just accept this argument, but it would not conclude that God, as you've defined him, exists.
how come?
Well, yeah, let's just say that there is some first cause, right? And let's say that cannot be an infinite regress, and that everything that we observe is contingent. Like this would not therefore conclude that a necessary, omnipotent, omniscient, and morally perfect being that is an agent exists.
Yeah, but that's like the claim. Why can't that be the case?
I'm not saying that it cannot be the case. I'm saying it does not follow.
How does it not follow? Because I think what should we call it? If everything we observe is contingent, right? And if we're granting that there is no infinite regress, that means there's gonna have to be a first causer, I would say. Something that lacks
Right.
cause, yet it a set of everything. So I think that logically follows. How does it not logically follow here? What's the
Wait,
contradiction?
so it logically follows from a first cause that is both uncaused, um, and eternal, right? I'm assuming that's what you mean by uncaused.
Yeah,
To an omnipotent, omniscient, morally perfect, and necessary entity.
yes. I think it makes logical sense since there's no infinite regress. I don't believe in that, so I think that there will have to be something outside of just something contingent that would be the creator of all set of contingencies.
Well, look, I agree that it follows to a creator. I'm asking you, why does it mean that it created, our contingent line or causal chain, that it's
Are you,
omnipotent, omniscient, necessary, and morally perfect?
okay, so you're saying that even if there is a creator, why does he have to follow under these things?
Yeah, why would it be God?
Okay, so what should we call it? I mean, if we're saying that, what should we call it? All these, yeah, let's say that if we're like going under the argument that there's something outside or some type of creator, I believe this creator will have to exist outside of space and time. If this thing is the creation or set of all contingencies, I believe he'll just automatically just exist outside of space and time. Because yeah, because if he's the cause or creator of everything, things like time and space, he'll be the creator of all that. So I think that if we're suggesting that there's an entity or agent that lacks spatial and temporal qualities, I think the likelihood of just granting, oh, he would also be all powerful, all knowing, and so on, would just be very likely, especially if he's actualizing ideas like this and so on. But yeah, I think it just makes the most logical sense to apply these qualities towards God. Or they're
Okay,
more,
so just to be clear, since he's causing our universe, then he's outside of space-time, which would therefore probabilify that he's omnipotent, omniscient, omnibenevolent, and necessary.
yeah, I would grant that, yeah.
Okay, do you have an argument for that?
I mean, if there's an agent that exists outside of space and time, the possibilities of what this thing is capable of doing is like infinite, I guess. So I think that is just more likely that it would just be something all powerful because this is something outside of what we observe. This is something outside of our like reality, right? So I think that if we were to grant, oh, this thing is possible. It's possible for this thing to be all powerful. That would also just be more likely than if it was just like a contingent being or something else. So I think it would just be more likely that this is the case, unless you think there's some like, unless you have like a problem with like all powerful, omnipotent or something. But I think it's just be more likely that this deity would just be all powerful, since it exists outside of space and time, already existing outside of our normal fundamental norms. It will be just more likely that it's like very possible this thing would just be all powerful in nature.
All right, so
Because
just to be clear, you made a few blunders there. You said you prescribed this thing agency. I don't agree with agency. Your original argument did not conclude it. Until you just said that since we don't know like anything else about the nature of whatever caused space-time, besides that it could not be inside of space-time, therefore it has a lot of possibilities, and therefore it's more likely that it has these attributes. Right? That does not follow. Anything is possible for like me as long as it does not, lead to some logical contradiction or contravene with some, classical law of logic. Right? So it does not probabilify, me being like a bird or something.
okay, but even then, right, we deem it to be illogical for something to exist outside of space and time. So if something we were to logically
Wait,
suggest that
why
there
is
is,
that?
because if we are looking at our observed reality, we are limited to space and time. So it's not possible for us to be able to exist outside of it or to break outside of space and time, because these are fundamental things that are needed for us to be able to exist. So if we were to somehow exist outside of that, like in a physical sense, that would be illogical. But if God, if we're granting that, if we're pointing towards like some type of deity that exists outside of this, it would be more likely as all powerful, right? Since he's doing something that we would deem to be illogical. I just think it just points more possibilities, right? And just doesn't. And your analogy for the logically possible thing, that like obviously we grant multiple logical possibilities if it doesn't lead to a logical contradiction. But thing is with this, right? What we deem like what we deem for existence for certain things are going to exist outside of our normal logic. So it'll be illogical in some sense. So I think that would just make more sense to point towards this living thing to be an all powerful thing. I think it just makes way more sense to point towards that. And I say you're kind of giving more negations than like arguments. I guess you're saying that this doesn't logically follow, but how does it not? I think it's just more likely, and I think it's more likely because it exists outside of our normal logical norms, which also omnipotence would be too.
Okay, why is it illogical?
You said what?
You said it was illogical for this agent to exist.
Yeah, I said my explanation for that. You said wait, repeat that again.
You said it was illogical for this agent to exist, and since he did, then he, has a lot of like possibilities.
No, I didn't say he was. It was like illogical for him to exist. I'm saying that we deemed it, existing outside of space and time. Like for us, we deem it to be illogical for us to exist outside of space and
Or
time.
what
Yeah.
law of logic does it contravene with?
You said what? What laws of
What
logic?
law of logic does it contravene with?
I mean, if you deem something to be fake and somehow exists, I think we would deem that to be illogical. If we look at views like nominalism and so on, we deem these things to be fake, unexistent. These things could be deemed to be illogical, right? Something that doesn't exist. But then was somehow to exist, that would be kind of like illogical. So we deem this thing to be illogical and non-existent factor, and then yet this God can follow under these laws or
Look, you're just not answering my question. I just want to clarify here. What is the logical law that contravenes with some agent being aspatiotemporal?
Yeah, that's why I brought up nominalism. I know you're not really keeping up here, but nominalism deems
Look,
for
I
some.
understand if you reject the view that this being exists, then it wouldn't be consistent with the view. That doesn't make it illogical.
I mean, I didn't say. I said that we deem it to be illogical.
Why? What law of logic does it contravene with?
Again, right? So if again we deem it to be illogical because it doesn't fall under our logical norm, right? So if it doesn't fall under all the necessary fundamentals of our reality, we would deem this thing to be illogical. Just like, for example, if
That's
for
just not true, though, right?
yeah, but if spirits were to, for example, live in no, let me give a better analogy. You know what? Wait, how is that not true? If something doesn't follow under our fundamental or norms of reality, right? We would deem this thing to be illogical. Just like, for example, if I was to start flying, we would deem that to be illogical because that doesn't follow under our fundamental norms or something we usually see. Illogicality is something that doesn't abide by reasoning. So
Look,
obviously,
the way that we measure, something being logical or illogical is not just to say that, it like fails to meet up with our fundamental norms that we establish like in our head. The way we establish something to be illogical is if it contravenes with a law of logic That's why I'm asking you, what makes it illogical?
It doesn't necessarily have to bypass law of identity or the three laws of logic. Logic, there's multiple forms of logic, and if we could just bypass some of those, like some multiple forms of different forms of logic, like the way we see and observe and study our reality, I think I'll just put towards again the possibilities that are granted just to be more likely because again they're bypassing the normal human nature going into some spiritual nature. Again, leaving the doors open for stuff like omnipotence to be more likely because we already granted that would be that we need some type of necessary being to be existent. So if we're granted that this thing is a necessary being and all of existence are reliant on him, he would instantly be all powerful. All powerful is to be able to do anything without limits. All reality is existent and dependent on him. He would be all powerful in this sense, as in he's the creator and creator of all of everything.
Yeah, like this is just, so incoherent. I just cannot understand it at all. Do you have like a deductive argument?
What do you mean?
Yeah, well, look,
I know.
everything you're saying, right? You said that there's like multiple types of logics, and our like fundamental aspect or like our view on the world is a type of logic in and of itself, and bypassing this would give it, some like possibility to be this thing, and that would probabilify it. And then you just said that it must be, all powerful. Like verbatim, that's what you said. That just, doesn't follow at all to me. I don't think anybody else in this VC would agree with you. Like that just doesn't sound incoherent. But if you have a deductive argument, then maybe I'll engage a little bit more on this.
Here's the thing I say. I feel like you're kind of more giving negative claims. I feel like you don't really have a reason to disagree. You just say it doesn't logically follow. And the logic thing wasn't the only reason I granted for it to be all powerful. I said even then a necessary being, right, would exist in every possible world, and all of reality would be existent, or reliant on this being, right? Therefore, he would just be all powerful by that because all of our reality, everything is reliant on this thing. In this sense, we would deem this thing to be all powerful because we are reliant on this thing. Everything's relying on this thing. Concepts, so on, are going to be relying on this thing. So leave again. That would just make it more likely that this thing is an all powerful. That would grant it being an all powerful being, but it would also make it more likely for other attributes of being an all powerful being also being granted as well, like omniscience and so on. So just being a necessary being in general can also grant all powerfulness.
Jesus Christ, you look like I'm not trying to be mean right here, but you look really bad right now. You keep on developing this character that you've made. I said I'd grant that there's a first cause, and then you said, you gave it agency, and I said, well, I don't give it agency, and you just kind of ignored me there. And now you're saying that, well, all these concepts rely on it. Obviously that doesn't follow either. And then this whole point of like, well, I'm just continue to make negative claims. Yeah, I'm asking questions on your view because you're not successfully answering them to me. I don't think anybody in this VC is convinced of your position right now. That's why I'm asking you for an argument. But I mean, if you think I'm just being pedantic, we don't have to continue to engage.
Yeah, so we don't have to continue to engage. You're kind of giving like baseless skeptic, like as well. So yeah, we don't gotta continue.
Yeah, sure.